The first thing my father said after I told my family I'd sold my company for $18 million was, "Well, now you can finally fix your sister's life." Not congratulations. Not we're proud of you. Just a bill waiting to happen. And 3 months later, my own mother stood in my living room crying because I refused to hand over my fortune to my sister. That was the day I closed the door on my family forever. My name is Victoria Hale. I'm 36 years old, and growing up, my family had one unspoken rule. Everything belonged to my younger sister, Ava. Attention. Excuses. Opportunities. Forgiveness. Ava was chaos wrapped in charm. Beautiful. Funny. Emotional in a way people found irresistible. And my parents treated every disaster she created like a temporary inconvenience somebody else should solve. Usually me. If Ava crashed a car, I was asked to help pay. If Ava quit another job impulsively, I was expected to be supportive. If Ava maxed out credit cards, my parents called me about family responsibility. Meanwhile, I was the practical daughter. The quiet one. The reliable one. The child people only noticed when they needed something fixed. By 16, I was tutoring classmates for money. By 22, I was working 80-hour weeks at a software startup. And by 33, I launched my own cybersecurity company after years of sleeping in my office and surviving on caffeine and panic. Nobody in my family understood what I actually did. They just knew I worked with computers. Except suddenly, after a massive acquisition deal, those computers became very interesting to them. The sale happened fast. 1 month I was fighting investor pressure. The next, my company sold for $18 million before taxes. I still remember sitting alone in my penthouse staring at the contract feeling numb. Not euphoric. Just exhausted. Because people think money changes your life overnight. But emotionally? Sometimes your brain takes months to catch up. At first, I told almost nobody. A few close friends. My attorney. That's it. But then my uncle accidentally posted a congratulatory message online after hearing through relatives. And suddenly, my phone became a bloodbath. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years calling me family. People sending business ideas. Investment requests. Charities. Old classmates. Even ex-boyfriends magically remembering I existed. But nothing compared to my parents. Mom called me sobbing with pride. Dad suddenly started introducing me as our brilliant daughter. For about 2 weeks, I let myself believe maybe success finally changed how they saw me. That was my mistake. Then came the dinner. The dinner that destroyed everything. My parents invited me over to celebrate as a family. Ava was there too, of course. Late as usual. Wearing designer clothes she definitely couldn't afford. Halfway through dessert, my father leaned back smiling. "So," he said casually, "have you thought about how you'll help your sister?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" Ava sighed dramatically. "Well, my situation is complicated right now." Her situation turned out to be catastrophic debt. Again. Failed boutique business. Luxury apartment she couldn't afford. A boyfriend who vanished after draining her savings. Over $400,000 gone. And apparently my parents already decided I should solve it. Dad smiled like this was obvious. "You have more money than you'll ever need." I stared at him. "You think I should just hand Ava money?" My mother reached for my hand. "Sweetheart, family takes care of each other." That sentence hit differently when you're the only person expected to sacrifice. I stayed calm. "I can help her financially plan. Pay for therapy maybe. But I'm not giving away millions." The entire mood changed instantly. Ava rolled her eyes. "There it is." "There what is?" "The superiority complex." I almost laughed. "You think refusing to bankroll your entire life is superiority?" Then came twist number 1. My father slammed his glass down. You owe this family. Silence filled the room. And suddenly years of hidden resentment surfaced all at once. Dad started listing everything they'd done for me growing up. Food. Housing. School support. Basic parenting repackaged as debt. Then my mother said the sentence that truly shattered me. Ava needs this money more than you. Needs. Not deserves. Needs. Like my life's work was a resource waiting redistribution. I left dinner shaking with anger. But honestly, part of me still believed things would calm down. Instead, they escalated. Fast. Over the next month, my family transformed into strangers. Relatives started calling me selfish. Aunts sent guilt-filled messages about remembering where you came from. My cousin Ethan drunkenly told me, "Everyone thinks the money made you cold." The money didn't make me cold. It revealed how transactional their love always was. Then came twist number 2. One night, Ava showed up at my apartment crying hysterically. Mascara running. Hands shaking. For a moment, I genuinely worried something terrible happened. Then she handed me a folder. Loan notices. Legal warnings. Private debts. Apparently, things were far worse than anyone admitted. Not $400,000. Closer to $2.3 million. My stomach dropped. How is this even possible? She broke down crying. And for the first time in years, I saw real fear instead of entitlement. Turns out Ava's ex-boyfriend manipulated her into acting as the public face for multiple fraudulent luxury resale investments. When everything collapsed, creditors targeted her legally because most documents carried her signature. Suddenly things became more complicated emotionally. Because now I wasn't looking at a spoiled sister demanding money. I was looking at someone genuinely drowning. That night we talked for hours. And honestly, for the first time in our adult lives, Ava sounded honest. I know everyone thinks I'm useless, she whispered. I stayed quiet. Then she said something heartbreaking. Mom and Dad always told me you'd fix things eventually. That sentence changed everything. Because suddenly I understood. My parents didn't just enable Ava. They raised her believing my success existed to absorb her failures. I offered to help under strict conditions. No direct cash. I'd pay for legal counsel. Debt restructuring experts. Therapy. A modest apartment temporarily. Real help. Not endless rescue money. Ava cried with relief. I thought maybe we finally found a path forward. Then 3 days later, I discovered the truth. My parents secretly told extended family I agreed to fully take care of Ava financially. Not temporary support. Not structured help. They were already spending imaginary money that wasn't theirs. And worse? My father had apparently promised investors connected to Ava's failed schemes that the family would settle outstanding obligations. Meaning me. Without asking. Without permission. I exploded. I drove straight to their house shaking with rage. What did you tell people? Mom instantly started crying. Dad stayed defensive. You have the money. That doesn't make it yours. Then came the final betrayal. My father looked me dead in the eyes and said, "If you don't help your sister completely, you'll destroy this family." Destroy the family. Interesting choice of words. Because suddenly I realized something horrifying. In their minds, my role was never daughter. It was insurance policy. Walking bailout fund. Human safety net. And the second I refused that role, I became the villain. Then came the climax. A week later, my parents organized a family intervention. I wish I were joking. They invited relatives to pressure me collectively. Uncles. Cousins. Even family friends. Like some twisted courtroom. One by one people lectured me about generosity. responsibility, humility. Ava sat silently crying while everyone discussed my money like I wasn't even human. Then my mother delivered the final blow. Victoria has become obsessed with control since becoming wealthy. Control. That word snapped something inside me. Because after decades of being emotionally mined for stability, they were accusing me of control. I stood up slowly. The room quieted immediately. And for the first time in my life, I stopped trying to be understood. You all keep talking about $18 million, I said calmly. But none of you survived the years it took to earn it. Silence. I missed funerals working. I slept in office bathrooms. I had panic attacks so severe I lost vision temporarily. Nobody spoke. I looked directly at my parents. You taught Ava that consequences were optional because eventually I'd pay them away. My mother started crying harder. Dad interrupted angrily. So you're abandoning your sister? I looked at Ava. Really looked at her. And honestly? She looked exhausted. Ashamed. Broken. Then she quietly whispered. I never asked for all this. That stunned the room. My father snapped immediately. Ava. No, she said louder. You told me my whole life Victoria would handle everything. Silence exploded across the room. Because finally, someone told the truth. Not me. Ava. And suddenly the entire family dynamic stood exposed and ugly in plain daylight. Then I made my decision. I turned toward the door. I'll pay for Ava's legal defense and recovery program privately, I said calmly. But none of you will ever have access to me financially again. Mom looked horrified. Dad laughed bitterly. You'd cut off your own family? I opened the door slowly. And said the sentence that still echoes in my head sometimes. No. I'm finally separating love from extortion. Then I walked out. And this time, I didn't come back. The aftermath destroyed the illusion holding my family together. Without me funding emergencies, my parents were forced to confront their own finances honestly for the first time in decades. Ava eventually entered therapy and started rebuilding her life slowly. Ironically, losing unlimited rescue options forced her to become stronger. We speak occasionally now. Carefully. Honestly. As for my parents? They still tell relatives I abandoned the family after getting rich. And honestly? That used to hurt. Now it doesn't. Because people who confuse access with love will always call boundaries betrayal. Today, I live quietly. Smaller circle. Less noise. Real peace. And sometimes I think about that final moment standing at the door while my family stared at me like I was cruel for refusing to sacrifice myself again. But here's the truth nobody talks about. Money doesn't destroy families. It reveals the roles people assigned you long before you ever had it.